What is Science by George Orwell. In last week's Tribune, there was an interesting letter from Mr. J. Stuart Cook, in which he suggested that the best way of avoiding the danger of a scientific hierarchy would be to see to it that every member of the general public was, as far as possible, scientifically educated. So the writer says that in last week's Tribune is a magazine. Uh, so there was an interesting letter from Mr. J. Stuart Cook. So like how people send articles for the magazine, Mr. J. Stuart Cook sent a letter to the editors in which he suggested that the best way of avoiding the danger of scientific hierarchy,
Scientists being in power.
scientists being in power and the normal people not knowing anything about it. So to avoid that danger, he said the way to do it is that every member of the general public is educated in science, like knows basic science, so that they are not, they cannot be put down.
Mm.
At the same time, scientists should be brought out of their isolation and encouraged to take a greater part in politics and administration. So, at the same time that the general public is educated in science, he's saying that the scientists should be taken out of their isolation because they are usually found in a lab
Yes.
or doing some research or some formulating a theory. So they should be brought out of that and asked to take a part in politics and administration, like in the government or like advising or being a part of the government. As a general statement, I think most of us would agree with this, but I notice that as usual, Mr. Cook does not define science. So in the letter that Mr. Cook sent, the writer noticed that he hasn't defined what science is. So the author
You have to define what you're going to study and
yes, teach the general public, and merely implies in passing that it means certain exact sciences whose experiments can be made under laboratory conditions. So what the author says is Mr. Cook's definition of science merely applies to what can be done in a lab,
mm,
like exact sciences, not
any other
soft
subjects.
sciences.
Any other subject.
Yeah. Thus, adult education tends to neglect scientific studies in favor of literary, economic, and social subjects. So, adult education neglects the common subjects and
Like physics.
Yeah.
chemistry.
it concentrates on the hard sciences,
It concentrates on the soft sciences.
soft sciences. Oh. Like economics, sorry, no, literature, economic, and social subjects. Okay.
Adult education consists of literature, economics, etc.
Yeah. Economics and sociology not being regarded as branches of science, apparently. So the author said that economics and sociology are not regarded as sciences, apparently, because the author thinks that they are sciences.
They are sciences.
Yes. This point is of great importance, for the word science is at present used in at least two meanings, and the whole question of scientific education is obscured by the current tendency to dodge from one meaning to the other. So the author says that this point is very important because what people refer to as science can be taken as two meanings.
Has two meanings.
Yes, and people jump from one meaning to the other based on the context in what they are speaking.
So if everyone has to be scientifically educated, then they have to define science, and there are
Right.
two meanings. So you don't know which one.
Which one to? Yeah. Science is generally taken as the meaning either A. The exact sciences such as chemistry, physics, etc. or B. A method of thought which obtains verifiable results by reasoning logically from observed fact.
Mm.
So the author says that science has two meanings. One is the exact sciences. When you say science, you either mean like chemistry, physics, the exact sciences, or another meaning can be a method of thought which obtains verifiable results by reasoning logically from observed fact. So you look at observed fact and you logically come to a conclusion. So that the process is science.
Okay, how can economics be a science then, according to the author? Do you think? What do you think is?
So, like in economics, you'll have in question your economy, your monthly household spending and stuff. So, if you consider the facts like how to save money, in what should I invest, it is a particular pattern. And if the bank says that you are getting a certain amount of interest, you will be getting that amount of interest. So, they are facts, and you logically, like work it out so that it comes to a conclusion. And
What is the conclusion? Lump sum at the end of certain
yeah,
period.
and it will be that much. It won't move
Decided.
small or big. So it is proven that you will get that much. So it can be a science because it works on logic and facts, and it comes to a certain conclusion.
Okay, but here the author says there are two definitions. One is the exact sciences, the other is a method of thought which obtains verifiable results by reasoning logically from observed fact. The question is, are those two definitions separate or are they the same? Does it mean, in other words, that physics does not reason logically from
It does.
it does. So those two definitions are not separate. They depend into one another. But what does it do? It brings into view the picture that any subject can be a
Science.
How can, for example, your subject, how can it be a science, do you think?
So my subject is sound engineering. So, for example, when we take sound, there's a spectrum of sound. Like we can hear from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. That in itself is a fact from physics. And when you do, when you work out the music, it is you use certain rules to take out the highs, which are like screeching sounds, the sibilants, and you take out some of the low end frequencies that make it a little boxy or too bassy. So when you do that, it's like logically you are cutting out certain frequencies.
Where do you learn all these facts?
From my textbook.
Yeah. So that brings literature into a science.
Yeah.
So, because every subject probably or practically has a textbook, literature
Right.
is a science. If you follow the rules of the textbook, you'll get the results.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Stephen.